Welcome back to Choose Courage Inc., the podcast where we explore what it really means to lead, to create, and honestly, just to build from a place of courage instead of chaos. I'm your host, Vivianne Castillo, and in today's episode, I'm excited to be joined by Anna, founder and a creative whose journey began with a deeply personal story around loss, love, and long-haul flights. And out of that experience came a mission, came a vision to help travelers arrive in better shape, not just physically, but also emotionally. And so together we talk about the healing power of rest. We talk about how entrepreneurship can be a mirror for growth and why restoration isn't a luxury and shouldn't be seen as one. Instead, restoration is a necessity. Whether you're listening mid-flight or in between meetings, or maybe you're at home getting your life together, like I'm often doing when I'm listening to podcasts, I hope you're able to take a moment to exhale, unclench your jaw a bit, and let this conversation remind you that rest is a radical act of courage. This is Choose Courage Inc. Let's get it. I'm super excited to get into our conversation today, and I just want to jump right into it. I know that you've described your company as something that exists to help travelers arrive in better shape. And I'm just kind of curious, what inspired that mission, and how did the idea evolve from a personal need into a business?
Yeah. So I think a lot of founders probably have, I don't know if stories like mine is the right way to say it, but a life moment that drives commitment to a problem. And that's kind of exactly where my story starts. Last year for me, long haul international travel became just like a frequent need. My mom, who lived here in Austin with me, but was originally from Ireland, she became terminally ill with breast cancer. And
Mm.
last summer we moved her home to live with her sister. And I flew back and forth between the west of Ireland and Austin, where I live, where my family is, 4 times, door to door, 24 hours each way before she passed, actually a year ago today. And that the experience of travel in that kind of like transitional space and going to be with my mom and take care of her and that like really precious end time really kind of highlighted first of all the like terrible condition that I was arriving in, because I was getting there and it was taking me days to kind of like resurrect myself.
Yeah.
Like the way that I moved, the way that I was sleeping, I was just really stiff and uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And that much travel and airplanes are not designed for our comfort anymore. They're designed for more and more bodies.
Sure.
And so when I came home after the first leg, my like very long time sports medicine chiropractor doctor person was like, "Oh yeah, I don't ever fly without a lumbar pillow." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I started doing some research. Airplane seats, like they have removed all of the padding, which like now they call them slimline seats, which is hilarious because that's just like a sexy term for uncomfortable. Like we took out all the padding.
Right.
And
For a
then
folding chair with some cloth over it.
basically, yeah. And then instead of having like a lumbar curve that actually supports our lumbar curve, it actually goes the other way. So
Interesting.
your spine like slumps into the back of the seat. Yeah, it's
Mm.
terrible. And I am a like woman in my mid 40s. And so I like that is to say my body does not like bounce anymore. And so all of that sitting and like very cramped spaces in a seat that has absolutely no support was just killing me. And the second that I started traveling with a lumbar pillow, which I only ever do anymore, it immediately changed my mobility. And it wasn't even like I was arriving in better shape. I was just more comfortable sitting in the seat. I was like, oh, this is really different. It immediately felt different to me. And so
Mm.
I started carrying on my own seat upgrade. And so I've
Oh.
assembled this kit of like random things that, of course, I'm like rapidly product testing everything on the market, trying to figure out like what's the best kind of variety. And so now I have this kit that every time one of my friends goes on a long haul flight, I send them with my kit and ask for feedback.
Love
That's
that.
just like a fun way to do like rapid testing and also market research.
Yeah.
But back to your question, how did this evolve into a business? The like second part of it is it's like where does the okay, like I've now I carry on my own seat upgrade. Like where did that problem kind of like solidify into one that I wanted to solve over time and invest in? And it really comes down to what I think is kind of like the importance of travel and core memories and core experiences. And the fact that I really saw with my own two eyes the, for lack of a better term, travesty of the kind of like grin and bear it travel culture, which is basically, we have this amazing capability in the modern age, if that's what you want to call this, or what I want to call it. And we've just we've turned it into this grin and bear it experience that like leaves us absolute shells of ourselves as we
Mm,
arrive at these like critical experiences in our lives. It just is so sad. And
yeah.
so, and I'm also someone that is like deeply invested in the object itself. I carry this lumbar pillow on every single trip with me. And now I carry additional pillows because it really does make the seat more comfortable. And I want them to feel good. I don't want them to just be a thing that I have to struggle along on every flight.
Yeah.
So I care about how they're made. I care about how they feel. I care about all of the components of the way that they make it into the world. So, yeah, so I wanna help people arrive in better shape. That's what I'm doing.
I love that. There's like a deeper life thing that I feel like you're touching on too, of a lot of us have been so used to, whether that is when we're flying, whether that's in the workplace, in certain relationships, to just grin and bear it. And I love how out of all the things that some of us consciously and unconsciously choose to grin and bear, you are picking this one particular avenue and opportunity to offer people a moment of relief in that. I love what you said of like you started to bring with you your own seat upgrade, which I love that. And I think it's a way too of how do you give people some sense of autonomy and power back in this industry that is prioritizing profits over people?
Great question. I you know, I actually have been thinking a lot about the kind of like transitional space of being on an airplane and just it's just weird, right? Like you're crammed into this space with strangers. You have very little personal space. Like it's not public transportation, but you might as well be on on the crowded subway car, right? But the actual like time and the way that people use it or suffer through it like varies greatly. And I think one of the things that as a parent, I have tried to kind of like take back is what I do with my time on the airplane. And
Mm.
it's gone from at one time I was like, oh, I should be working on the airplane. And that's just ridiculous. This is not a space of productivity for me. I've tried that. It's a mess. I'm like, I can't even move my elbows. How do I do that?
You're
And
like
so
a T-Rex kind of thing
exactly,
that's happening. Yeah.
exactly. So now I think about I have like fully reframed the time and space on the airplane as this is only time where I am either reading or watching TV and it's in or movies. It is fully indulgent. And I
Hmm.
don't have a lot of as a full-time professional and full-time parent, I don't have a lot of that kind of like it's not garbage time. It's indulgent time. I love like doing those things and having nobody ask me for anything. I feel really good about turning time on a plane into a time when I am making myself as comfortable as possible and kind of like like nesting, for lack of a better term, into like a place where I can really lean into whatever like garbage TV I want to watch, or like whatever book I've been saving and hauling around with me that I haven't really gotten time or focus to read, and like really trying to purpose that time instead of just, oh my God, how do I get through this?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, what I love what you're bringing up is the idea of how do you intentionally cultivate a space and experience of indulgence that it doesn't just have to be something that you're gritting your way through, like, how can I get through this? But it can be something that you can be intentional in crafting for yourself. And I love that. There's something really beautiful about designing products that restore people during transitions. And I love that's where you're getting at. I'm hearing you kind of talk about transforming people's experience with indulgence, with having time back to themselves. I'm curious, what other kinds of transformations do you hope people experience, and why do you think that's important?
Yeah. One of the shifts that I hope to kind of inspire in people with the direction of my business and my brand, to be named, by the way, is the the idea of active restoration through travel. I think there's a lot of value in changing the framing from, I'm gonna like basically grin and bear this, to I'm gonna make myself as comfortable as possible and really enjoy this movie that
Mm,
I probably wouldn't otherwise watch. But there are other aspects of it that I also think are more active. And I think some of those things are I'm struggling for what word I'm gonna use to call this, because it's not really self-care, it's not really wellness, and those terms are seem to be, like, I don't know if loaded is the right word, but not doing the thing that I'm hoping for. But it's more like I want people to be more engaged with how they can actively, I think, support their bodies better in this really kind of, like, strenuous time, because travel is stressful, um,
mhm,
and I think we've done 0 things to make it not stressful physically, emotionally. Like, airports, as you know, are just a nightmare, and airplane food is terrible. Like, all of the aspects of it have a lot of opportunity for improvement. And I think that, people have their own ways of how they approach these problems. And some people don't at all. They're just kind of, it is what it is. But I think there's a lot of things that, and awareness that can be, hopefully, I can bring to the table with my brand that will help people be able to do small things that will make the whole experience better, make it feel more restorative, and then actually have them feel like they're arriving to whatever it is they're going to in better shape, and kind of like, I also like to think of it as kind of hitting the ground running, even if you're not literally running.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and what you're proposing here, I think, requires significant mindset shifts and beliefs that people need to kind of work through and sort through. And I've found that as a founder, one of the best ways for our audience, for our customers to experience it, is for us to experience it first. And so I'm curious, as a leader and as a creative, what's been the hardest mindset shift for you to make or work through as you've been building this? Yeah.
So the reason I laugh is because the first thing, when you were kind of like forming that question, the first thing that came to mind about, yes, you're right. For my audience, there is going to have to be some mindset shift. And one of those things that I'm constantly, like the place that I went to when you were forming the question, was I'm going to have to be able to convince people to carry on additional things. And that's going to be a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I know is gonna be like an uphill battle for my business. But your question is, where has there been set shifts in order to approach my business?
Yeah. What's been the hardest mindset shift for you to make or work through as a leader and creative?
I've been a corporate employee in big tech for 5 years, and I've been an employee for my whole career, and I think the single biggest shift for me to date that is just ongoing is just it's the transition from going from getting a regular paycheck every 2 weeks or however often I get paid to for, per 40-hour work week to, the regular, like, monetary investment in myself, which right
Mm,
now is because my business hasn't launched yet, it's and this is by design. I have taken on I haven't done any fundraising. I wanna bootstrap the initial launch myself, just to be clear. And part of that is because I want it to all be on me. I
mm,
want every not just that I want to make every decision, but I also want to bear the responsibility of every decision. And so that constant monetary investment and just like every decision that goes along with it is that's a constant mindset shift, and I'm sure, like, over time, that will just be, like, part of the grind, or I don't even know if I'll call it a grind. It doesn't feel like a grind, but I think it'll be part of the rhythm, that's a better word.
right.
Yeah, but right now, that's really different, and it's something that I think about constantly, not so much in a negative way, but more in like a just that you're changing this pattern and that you have to this is just part of the thing.
Yeah.
But it is a hard change.
Yeah. And I think too, for those of us who have worked in corporate, we don't even realize how passive we can be in terms of our rhythms of work. So when you are having to bootstrap and you are truly aware of all the things that are working well or what's slowing you down, there's a level of proactiveness and awareness that a lot of us don't have within our 9 to 5s. And so it's also just like a different emotional level. It's a different awareness of you and like your self awareness and like how you're doing and how you're feeling in the midst of where you are in your business. So yeah, that's a huge shift for sure.
Yeah. It's been a big one.
Yeah. I know for me, in the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey, the hardest shift was realizing that leadership, being creative doesn't require constant proving. And
Mm,
it's that creativity doesn't have to come from chaos. And I feel like that was more of like a norm for me, of like creativity coming from places of chaos or kind of like getting things together in like the nick of time.
mhm,
Because for most of my life, I think I equated pressure with purpose.
mm,
Part of this is maybe upbringing, having a traumatized parent or emotion available parents, having a half Korean Asian immigrant mom. If you know, you know what that's like. So there's part of it's like upbringing,
mhm,
but it taught me that if I wasn't stretched thin, then maybe I'm not stretching myself far enough. Or it taught me that if something felt too easy, then maybe I'm missing something, or maybe something is lacking that should be making this a little bit harder. And that mindset often made burnout feel noble and overextension feel like I'm accomplishing something. But since then, I've learned that leadership rooted in depletion isn't leadership, it's martyrdom with better branding. And creativity that depends on crisis will always collapse under peace because it feels so foreign. You almost don't know what to do with it. So the hardest shift has been learning to trust ease.
mhm.
And even if other people might look at something and they might see what I'm doing as a grind, if I'm experiencing it as joyful, as fun, as creative, that's okay. I don't have to fit in people's boxes or understanding of things anymore. And it's still uncomfortable at moments, but yeah, there's a lot of releasing and healing within this work too.
Yeah, all of that resonates. I think my slightly different, I guess, way that I would describe my version of the, like, corporate experience is the expectation is never enough. It's like
Mm,
I can deliver and deliver, and it's just never enough. And that it was a really big shift for me when I started to lead on my own, and I didn't have that response because then my confidence just grew. Because when you're
mm.
not met with, "Yeah, but that's not enough," over and over and over again, you start to feel like maybe you are?
Yeah.
And that it's funny though because it affected both the way that I was showing up at my business decisions and then also the way that I was showing up at work. 'Cause
Mm,
I still gotta show up at my day job, and I started to lead better
mm,
and just with more confidence because I had this other data point that was affirming me outside of the never enough.
ooh, you're touching on something that I think would be the secret sauce, the cheat code to a lot of people or for a lot of people. And that is having other data points that remind you that what you're doing is good and that you are more than what you produce and like you are competent and capable of doing like great things. Because a lot of like our workplaces can stifle that belief and that confidence. But entrepreneurship, it sounds like, has introduced another data point and shown you, hey, there's actually more here than what my 9 to 5 says I'm capable of.
Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy, leaving that again, still go to work every day or go to work from my home office, but ha having operating outside of that framework and building data points over time that I'm then able to it's almost not fully shirk the corporate mentality, but yeah, I admit that I feel a little bit more free inside of that hamster wheel.
Ooh, that's a big vibe. I bet a lot of people wouldn't think that. You want to feel more free? Try entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
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 But I do think a part of the reason why people struggle to see that as a possibility is I see this on Instagram all the time, where you see those videos of, I left my 9 to 5 so I can work 24/7. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't detox anything from your corporate experience. And then you put all that into a space with no boundaries or having no one tell you what to do. Of course, you're working all the time. That's called you are unhealthy in corporate. That's what that is. Yeah. I was like, that's not I don't think that's what entrepreneurship can be or should be. What that is a signal of unhealth. And that's fine. We have all experienced it if you worked in corporate. And I know that you and I have talked about how entrepreneurship can and should be a healing experience. But in order for that to be true, we also have to see entrepreneurship as a mirror and opportunity for our personal growth.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering if you can maybe share with us, what have you learned? What else have you learned about yourself through the process of building something from scratch and building a business?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the biggest thing has been when I get thrown off the horse, getting back on and not thinking too much about it.
Mm,
So, I think, I've always really relied on the 9 to 5 structure of I have to show up at work every morning, and that's how I stay on the horse. I was an equestrian as a child, so this is like a lifelong analogy. Like, you get thrown off the horse, you get back on. So, I've always relied on that structure. "Oh, this is really hard. I have to show up at work every morning." And that was always a fear for me in becoming an entrepreneur was, if I get thrown off the horse, am I gonna be able to get back on? What's the structure gonna be where I get back on the horse? Right now, there's no structure. The structure is my commitment, and part of that structure is and that commitment is being a little bit more forgiving to myself. And it's I get thrown off the horse. I'm gonna get back on the horse, but it might be in like an hour, or I need a minute, or man, this is really hard this week, but next week is gonna feel better. It's just um allowing myself to show up in a way that is it's like a mindset shift. We're still doing this, it's still going, but the fact that it's harder today doesn't mean anything. It just means it's harder today.
Yeah. Hey, this is Vivianne, and I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And I just wanted to pause for a quick moment to say that this podcast is ad-free on purpose. And we want to keep it that way so that it feels like a space that's just for us and just a little bit more divorced from noise on what we should buy and what we should consume. And so the best way to help us do that is by sharing it with someone you think would really connect with it, someone who you think would feel encouraged or get something out of this episode, or by leaving an honest review because it helps more folks find us. And honestly, it could be the exact thing someone else needed to hear today, just because you took a moment to spread the word. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you, and let's get back to it. I love that. Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, when I think about how entrepreneurship has become a mirror for my personal growth and what it's taught me about myself as I've built something from scratch, I think entrepreneurship has been so far probably like one of the most honest mirrors I've looked into because it reflects back everything you'd rather not see. Your control issues, your issues with scarcity and fear, your attachment to validation disguised as vision, like all of it, right?
Yeah.
And when I started building something from scratch, I thought I was creating a business, but in reality, what I was doing was I was confronting myself.
Mhm.
Every decision, every risk, every silence between, momentum has this way of asking, do you really trust yourself, Viv? Or do you just trust kind of like your plans and what you think things should look like and how they should go? And entrepreneurship has revealed that I'm a lot braver than what I thought. But I'm also more tender than I ever let myself admit. And so now it's about how can I hold paradox, being strategic and soulful, ambitious and slow, visionary and human, all these things. It's taught me that growth isn't about scaling the thing that you're building. It's actually about expanding your capacity to hold uncertainty without losing yourself in it. That is, if you can nail that and figure out how to work your way through that, that's 90% of entrepreneurship. And what I've learned the most is that, especially around like leadership and building, it's not just about direction, it's about like digestion, I guess. Can I metabolize the doubt, the rejection, the pivots, and still lead from a place of trusting myself and from integrity? Can you build something that reflects your wholeness and this more healed version of yourself and not just what is possible when you can create from a place of chaos and crisis. So, yeah, I think entrepreneurship is at its core, it's about who are you becoming while you build this. And if you cannot lose sight of that, entrepreneurship can be incredible. But we see a lot of folks who ignore that or they just kind of grit their way through it and they just end up leaving one cage for a new cage that they built for themselves.
Given your very recent launch and the journey up to that launch, what would you say is how do you approach getting back on the horse?
Ooh, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I have Choose Courage Inc., but I also, with a couple of friends, built an astrology for pets business named Moon Paws. And earlier this week, we allowed people to experience the beta version of it for free. And I was telling her before we hopped on our call today about how, gosh, releasing things publicly, it really stresses me out. People probably wouldn't think that about me, but it makes me so anxious. There's something really vulnerable about sharing something that me and my team have been working on for the last like year and a half, 2 years. And now we're like putting it out there. There have been plenty of trials and tribulations, is what we'll call it, over the course of building that, especially being a non-technical founder, building a technical product. And I think for me, I keep going back to what is at the core purpose of why we're building this. And I told my team, and especially like we knew early on, I was like, hey, the world is just getting darker, it's getting harder. And this was even a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was like, I really want Moon Pause to be this moment of joy and wonder for people. How can we be this moment of relief? And so when things with development are going off course or getting off track, I'm like, okay, do I still believe in how important it is for us to be this moment of joy and wonder for people in the midst of a chaotic and just hard, hard world? And I would always bring myself back to that. Do I still care about that? Am I still driven by this vision? And right now it is October of 2025 and it has been a year, y'all. And even more so, I had this conviction of we just have to be this moment of joy, have to be this moment of wonder. So for me, the motivation has often been external. It's been about serving and helping others. And if, through this all, we're able to help a handful of people, that's enough for me. So while we want to grow and expand and get this in the hands of as many people as possible, like the focus isn't the number, it's the experience. And, if we had to shut it down a year from now, but people were able to experience it and find a moment of joy, then that's enough for me. If it causes people to feel creative, to feel like they don't have to be so afraid, that's enough. So it's definitely more of an external thing because otherwise, given some of the things we've had to experience in building this, like I'm not enough of a motivator. Like I'm just one person. So I need other people to be like the motivation for me.
That's really wonderful. Creating connection, right? Like you're fostering connection, and that's to do that at scale and allow people to kind of like have that autonomy themselves is really important, especially right now.
Especially right now. Yeah, and I think it goes back to courage, right? How do I choose courage over comfort? What are the things that will allow me to continue to do that? As you're thinking about your journey as well, I'm wondering if you could tell your past self one thing about courage before you started this journey, what would it be?
I would say that it's okay if it wavers. You're still brave. Keep going.
Mm,
You'll show up for yourself and others again. It's okay to take a day off. It's like
okay to take a day off.
the understory is, just to go back to the beginning of our conversation, the moments of restoration are so underrated. And if not grinding and actually leaning into something that restores you is an option, sometimes it's the brave path to take that because you can show up better the next day
Mm,
instead of, I think in the past I've punished myself for not being able to keep going. And that's such a corporate mindset, right? Like to just kind of grind it out. And I am really trying to teach myself not to do that anymore because I know how I feel when I show up restored. And
mm,
it's more creative, it's more empathetic, it's able to lead better. It's so many things that I want to be. So I would give myself permission to lean into that and see how it feels.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I feel like I would say like similar things, especially, I'd remind myself courage isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming more honest with myself. about what do I need, what do I want, and then actually honoring that.
Nice.
Even if it's not popular, even if it's going to be uncomfortable, but courage is about becoming more honest with yourself,
Hmm.
is what I'd remind myself of. And I think if I understood that being courageous is about being more honest with myself, then I could have avoided a lot of moments of questioning. And because I decided to doubt myself and lean into that, it ended up causing me to either be in certain relationships that weren't worth it or making decisions that I was just doing because I felt like I quote unquote had to do, but I didn't need to do.
Hmm.
So that's what I would tell myself for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of these lessons of things we would tell our younger self, it's also helpful in hindsight because not only do we have our own experiences, but we have been able to witness more the experiences of others and kind of learning from what we've noticed from other people
Hmm.
as we've been building and as we've been on this journey. I know that you've also been a part of the Choose Courage Inc. community and our group coaching experience for entrepreneurs. I'm curious about what. Hey, obviously she was pumping up her fist for y'all who can't see it. I'm curious about what initially drew you to this space. Yeah, like what's the tea?
100% it was you. Well, I'd seen you speak during the pandemic at some remote conference or whatever, and was just really gravitated towards your energy and authenticity and kind of like groundedness. And then, yeah, you're the kind of like call to action timing and you as a leader combo was just like, yes. So that was that was the call to arms.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, she was able to participate in our 3-month group coaching experience. And within there, it is really designed around this belief that entrepreneurship can and should be a healing experience. What does it look like when we focus on contributing more than we complain? And how do we actually be and feel less afraid, trust our gut more, and be more creative? I think these are kind of signals, important signals of healing within entrepreneurs. And over those 3 months, a lot of conversations, whether it's around mindset shifts, unhealthy things we need to detox from and retether ourselves to healthier things. We also talked about different ways of challenging the status quo of how do you do business and really just believing and recognizing that we don't all have to follow the capitalism bros blueprint for business. There's other ways of doing this. But would love if maybe you could share whether it was a mindset shift or a breakthrough that you've experienced from doing this work within Choose Courage Inc.
Yeah. I'm somebody that really learns from others. That's kind of like my core learning style. Like the master apprentice learning model, like I would have been a great shoe cobbler apprentice. That would have been like I actually totally aspire to do that
Love that.
someday. So the the transparency of the community and everybody is in there both celebrating wins and being really transparent about struggles together. Not in a way that's let me put my struggle on you, but just like, here's what I'm dealing with. And also
Hmm.
let's keep the progress in perspective. So
Hmm.
I think that really simple practice for me of every just for so the audience knows every Friday we post we call it wins and we always post personal and business wins, but we also talk about challenges and kind of what we've overcome. And those can be very small things and often are. And they can also be huge things like a launch. And I think I have made a practice of reading through that stuff every Friday. I do occasionally skip one, but life, get back on the horse. Uh,
Hmm.
but I really look forward to that, reviewing everybody else's, giving them kudos or just, high fives or man, that sounds really hard, whatever it is. And then also contributing my own, like that small and repeated practice has really allowed me to develop perspective, feel solidarity with, and a lot of these folks I've never met, and then some of them I have met briefly, and they have been such wonderful sparks and connections. And then some folks I've worked deeply with and really know their struggles pretty well. So I think that for me, that's just one, it's a thing that I look forward to and really rely on as a practice, in that I am at my house doing my thing and have all of life going on. It's really nice to have that. It's like the tides of the ocean every week. It comes in. I check in.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's a really good one.
Yeah, selfishly, like the same. I love part of that practice is we have to learn how to recognize and see what is a win, what's valuable for us before someone else tells us it's worthy of being called a win.
Mm.
So, there are people in there who are like, I was feeling sick this week and I took time away and I didn't feel bad about it.
To-
Or there are people who are sharing like real things that they're going through and yet they showed up. Or and yet, they were still able to do A, B, and C. And in the A, B, and C can be small things. But it's also about celebrating, and recognizing the wins in terms of on the business front too. And I think to do it with people that are rooting for you and not just giving some superficial like on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I know for me, my habit and challenge is I'm always challenging myself to share with the community before I would maybe share something on like LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
Because I know a lot of people in the community know me and have been watching my journey with the businesses and just life.
Mhm.
And it's just a good way to connect with people and to allow ourselves to be seen by us first. And so yeah, yeah, yeah. I think to that end, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who really struggle because they treat entrepreneurship as a solo journey when in reality it should be a shared one.
Mm.
And the reason why it should be a shared one is for those harder moments in entrepreneurship because it happens and it's just a part of the experience. How did this community shape how you navigate risk and fear in your business?
Mm. That actually was one of my fears about entrepreneurship, was that it would feel really lonely. And
Mm,
I think it was one of the top reasons that I have kind of talked myself out of it for a long time, was that I know that and my, before I'm a UX researcher and I worked very collaboratively with, tech people. But before that, I was a teacher and I taught college level photography, which I really loved. But it was very much like I was the leader of the classroom and I worked with all the students, and that was wonderful. But it wasn't particularly collaborative as far as like I wasn't really learning from other peers in the same way that I hoped to. And I think that was, I kind of carried the fear of repeating that experience through entrepreneurship. It's not exactly one to one, but you get where I'm going. Um,
mhm, mhm.
I was really afraid that I would not have that kind of ability to learn from peers in the same way that it's like I said, my core learning model is mentor. Like I need to see other people to learn oftentimes. And I have done that a lot in my professional life, but I have been really pleasantly surprised with just who I've kind of picked up from along the way, like working with you, being part of the community and seeing what other people are doing, and just getting people in the community are so generous as far as
I
like,
know.
yeah, offering. I'm right now trying to think of a name for my business because I didn't get the trademark that I wanted. And one of the community members offered to do an hour-long brainstorm for me on the weekend. Just
That's
things like
amazing.
that. Yeah, it really is. And so I have felt I really haven't had a moment where I'm like, oh, this is so lonely. This isn't what I want. Because I do also enjoy autonomous work. It's not like I always need to be working with other people. Um,
Sure, sure.
yeah, yeah. So that actually was a really pretty big point of fear for me, and thing that I have been able to overcome just through experience, and also choosing what I want. Like I can choose to work with other people, in the product
Mm.
development for my business. I have a product designer and developer and I work with those people. Yeah. So that has been like a really good point of growth for me to kind of work through that.
I love that. And yeah, and I think too, something that's unique about the community is everyone in the community is on their own journey around being and feeling less afraid,
Mm.
trusting their gut more, and being more creative. And you feel it in the energy of the community. Yeah, it reminds me of in the community, we have a channel called the Give Ask channel, which means you're welcome to ask the community for anything in terms of advice, ideas, but you have to offer a give first because we want to create a space where we're joining communal spaces based off of what we can contribute versus what we can take.
Mhm.
And I remember you'd put something in there around your name, and someone in the community was just so generous in terms of sharing in that channel some ideas and different ways of putting certain words together. And honestly, like seeing that person's response made me excited about some of the things I was working on in like a new way too. Of how like it can be fun to like name things and like being creative around the storytelling around it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that response was so thoughtful. Have you ever heard the term sprout before?
No.
In this I Somebody told this to me probably 15 years ago, but I've never forgotten it. And it was explained to me that a sprout is like a something that someone does or just a small something you learn, just like a small sprout of basically a spark of joy that is, I think, energizing. I'll say that. That's what it means to me. And that particular thing, like I would call that a sprout. And that happens for me often in the community that there are these kind of moments of generosity or thoughtfulness or small moments of joy you'll kind of witness between two community members that are sharing something with each other or like an exchange. Things like that happen on a really regular basis that are just
Mm.
you and I talk so much about the need for joy and restoration, all of these things. There's so much of that happening there.
I know.
Yeah, it's
I
really
love it.
yeah.
I know. Like selfishly, I'm like, I need this community. I love it. It's just good. Good people.
Good people.
Awesome. Okay, we're getting close to our time. So I do want to wrap up with this final question. Going back to restoration joys we were just speaking about. And I know that's a huge focal point in your brand. Your brand is all about restoration. It's all about helping travelers reclaim ease and well-being in motion. And I'm wondering if you would maybe share with us, what does restoration mean to you now? Especially as you've been building something around this. I imagine it's evolved. And so I'm just curious about, what does restoration mean to you now?
So restoration for me right now means having the space to think, which
Yes.
like sounds so simple, but it's the thing that I'm always looking for more of. And, my day job is very crowded with pings and chats and meetings and like fires that probably don't need to be burning but are. And then parenthood, I have two small children and that is amazing, but also very consuming. So all of those things together. And then I'm also starting business. So it's like all of those things require, I'm also like I call myself a hybrid introvert extrovert. Like I do need interaction and connection with people. That's what I've always said is I think is the meaning of life. But I'm also need to stare at the wall. Like deeply, deeply, deeply need time to process and reflect. And I feel like the world is no longer constructed to give us time to do that. And that
Mm,
is, I think, where creativity stems from. And for me, at least, I'm sure everybody has their own definition of where that flows from. But yeah, restoration for me means actually having time to process and think. Yeah. And one of the things that I think I really appreciate about our conversation is that you and I have talked extensively about how to do that, like how to get that time and space. And
mhm.
I hear that kind of echoing a little bit in what I'm hearing from women leadership in my kind of like sphere of influence. And I want you to know that I'm thinking a lot about it. And like the, you know, the hard part then is putting it in practice. And I am starting to do that because it's like deeply, deeply valuable and deeply important. And I think it is the thing that drives again it's what drives my creativity is like an ability to really invest in my ideas, which is what I want to do, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so the criticality of finding the time and space to do that is everything. Like I have to do it.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it sounds simple, but I know as you said that, having space to think, people are like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I want that."
It's
Absolutely.
become a luxury.
Yeah, it's funny, I met this woman month or so ago, Black woman from London who left London and now is based in Antigua. And now she just kind of travels all over and does Black hair. So she'll maybe be in like Mexico City for a week and she's like booking all the Black women there who are foreigners, whatever, to do their hair. And she said to me, she's one of the best things that has happened since I have left and have created my own thing. Is I have space to actually think about my ideas, and now I can actually make my ideas real. Whereas for a lot of people, their ideas have just turned into a form of escapism.
Mm,
But now I have space to think about them and actually make them real. And I was like, ooh, that part.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I love that restoration means having and creating space to think, because that's a cheat code. For listeners who are vibing with what you're saying, who are resonating with what you're building, how can they stay connected with you?
Yeah. So my brand was going to be called Soft Landing. I did not get the trademark, which is one of those things where got thrown off the horse, getting back on the horse, got a really long list of names. Getting a trademark is hard. Side note. So I'm working on that. But right now, you can still find me if you're hoping for a soft landing instead of the brand. It's softlanding.travel. You can give me your email and I will send you like upcoming lunches, cool thoughts on core experiences and mobility tips, that kind of thing. And you will be the first to know about what my business is actually going to be named.
I love that. So softlanding.travel is where you need to go to sign up to stay in the loop. And I appreciate that too. Like sometimes we have an initial name for a brand, a product, an idea, and we have to pivot, but it's just the art of the pivot and getting back on the horse. So in the meantime, that's the placeholder. All right. Softlanding.travel. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate our conversation and just the energy and vulnerability and clarity that you shared with us. So thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with us and diving into some of these real and unfiltered conversations. We know your time is valuable, and so we don't take it for granted. If today's episode made you think, if it challenged you, or gave you something new to consider, we'd love for you to hit that follow button on whatever streaming service you're using. That way, you'll never miss an episode when we drop them. And if you want to go even deeper, sign up for our newsletter at choosecourageinc.com, and you'll get updates on new episodes, access to exclusive freebies, and first dibs on coaching opportunities and other resources to help you make bold moves in your life and business. So we appreciate you, we see you, and we're rooting for you. Until next time, keep choosing courage over comfort, and a friendly reminder to drink some water.